The attacks of September 11th changed everything. They plunged the world into a new era of fear and uncertainty. Out of the ashes of that horrific day rose a new kind of war, a war on terror. It was a war fought not just on battlefields, but in the shadows, far from the watchful eyes of the public. And at the heart of this shadowy conflict were the CIA's black sites, secret prisons where suspected terrorists were held and interrogated. But the CIA weren't the only ones involved in these clandestine operations. Whispers began to circulate, whispers of a private military company called Blackwater, whispers that hinted at their deep involvement in the darkest corners of America's war on terror. These weren't just any whispers. These were whispers that spoke of torture, of extraordinary rendition, of a complete disregard for human rights. The whispers suggested that Blackwater, a company founded by a man named Eric Prince, a man with deep ties to the Christian right and the Republican Party, was operating with impunity, unaccountable to anyone but themselves. The whispers painted a chilling picture, a picture of a government outsourcing its dirtiest work to private contractors, men who operated outside the law, men who answered to no one. For years these whispers were dismissed as conspiracy theories, the ramblings of the paranoid. But slowly, painstakingly, the truth began to emerge. In the aftermath of 9/11, the CIA embarked on a controversial program. They began setting up secret prisons around the world, black sites where they could hold and interrogate suspected terrorists without the inconvenience of legal oversight. These weren't your average prisons. They were designed to break the will of the detainees, to extract information by any means necessary. Torture, it seemed, was back on the menu. The locations of these black sites were closely guarded secrets. Some were located in Eastern Europe, in former Soviet republics eager to please their new American patrons. Others were in the Middle East, tucked away in countries with questionable human rights records. Wherever they were located, they were shrouded in secrecy, hidden from the prying eyes of human rights groups and international observers. Inside these clandestine facilities, a dark and brutal drama was playing out. Detainees were subjected to sleep deprivation, stress positions, waterboarding, and other forms of torture that would have been unthinkable in a civilized society. Blackwater. The name itself evoked images of murky depths, of things best left hidden. Founded in 1997 by Eric Prince, a former Navy SEAL with a family fortune and a messianic zeal, Blackwater quickly became the go-to private military contractor for the U.S. government. They provided security for U.S. embassies, trained foreign militaries, and conducted covert operations in some of the world's most dangerous hotspots. But their involvement in the CIA's Black Site program was perhaps their most controversial undertaking. Blackwater operatives, many of them former soldiers and intelligence officers, were recruited to provide security at the black sites. They were the jailers, the interrogators, the enforcers. They were the ones tasked with keeping the detainees in line, with ensuring that the CIA's dirty secrets stayed buried. But Blackwater's involvement went beyond simply providing security. They were also involved in the transportation of detainees, often using unmarked planes and secret routes to move them between black sites. They were, in essence, running a global network of clandestine prisons. Section 4. A question of ethics, the blurred lines. The use of private military contractors like Blackwater in the CIA's Black Site program raised serious ethical and legal questions. These were, after all, private citizens, operating outside the chain of command, answerable only to their corporate masters. They were not bound by the same rules of engagement as regular soldiers, and they were not subject to the same level of oversight. This lack of accountability created a dangerous situation, one in which abuses were all but inevitable, and abuses there were. Reports emerged of Blackwater contractors torturing detainees, of them shooting unarmed civilians, of them operating with impunity in war zones. The most infamous incident occurred in 2007 when Blackwater contractors opened fire on a crowded square in Baghdad, killing 17 Iraqi civilians, including women and children. The Nisour Square Massacre, as it became known, sent shockwaves around the world, highlighting the dangers of outsourcing warfare to private companies. Section 5. Accountability in the shadows, a distant dream. In the aftermath of the Nisour Square Massacre and other scandals, there were calls to hold Blackwater accountable for its actions. But accountability proved elusive. The company and its employees operated in a legal gray area, shielded from prosecution by a web of secrecy and diplomatic immunity. Some Blackwater contractors were eventually charged with crimes related to the Nisour Square shooting, but many others escaped justice. The company itself was eventually dissolved only to re-emerge under different names, continuing to profit from the business of war. The legacy of Blackwater and the CIA's Black Site program is a dark one. It is a story of unchecked power, of torture, of impunity. It is a story that raises profound questions about the nature of war, the role of private companies in conflict zones, and the limits of accountability in the 21st century. And it is a story that, unfortunately, is far from over.